right. Hello, everybody. I'm an alcoholic. My name's Keith. And my sobriety date's May 11th, 1976. And for that, I'm especially grateful.
Hi, I'm Sue. I'm a grateful member of Al-Anon. My recovery date, because I haven't stabbed him, kicked him, or hit him, is May the 11th, 1976.
And people have asked us to do traditions workshop various over the years. We're not specialists on anything, but we have some qualifications. The only reason that we go ahead and do this is we've been married for over 51 years, continuously to the same each other.
He's my first husband.
Yeah, I'm her first husband. And we've been in a program for 37 years continuously without any breaks or time off for good behavior for 37 years continuously. I've been in AA and she's been in Al-Anon. Our daughter's been in Al-Anon and Al-Anon 37 years continuously. And when I sobered up, I had been in and out of AA, more out than in. And I couldn't go home to an old idea and stay sober. And so when I sobered up on May 11th, 1976, I ended up in a detox where Dr. Paul Oliger was running, and his wife Max was in Al-Anon and what have you, and they suggested that we get involved in AA and Al-Anon, and our kid to Al-Anon, our dog to Alley Dog, and our cat to Alley Cat, because we were so sick we needed help. And we bought the package. We bought the whole package, and we started out from the very beginning, and I went to AA and Sue went to Al-Anon, and since Al-Anon was a part of Al-Anon, she took our daughter to Al-Anon. So our daughter started Al-Anon. She was just under 13 years old when I finally got sober. And so we had to have some guidelines. And the initial guidelines was we had to have a home group, we had to have a sponsor, not the same one, and we had to have a God. And not the same one, whatever. The little girl, the daughter's God was different than mine, I can assure you. I wasn't an atheist, but I just felt I was an agnostic. But we all three got a home group, a sponsor. I got an AA sponsor, she got an Al-Anon sponsor, and the kid got an Al-Anon sponsor. And we started going to meetings. And so we started this program out, and they told us, our sponsors told us to put the 12 traditions on the refrigerator and try to live by them. We didn't rewrite them. We've still never rewritten them. The AA traditions are just slightly different than the Al-Anon traditions, but the Al-Anon traditions are like the Al-Anon traditions. And so it was a set of guidelines, and the first tradition was our common welfare should come first. Personal recovery depends upon unity. And we had to have unity. That's the first thing we had. If I'm going to stay sober, we had to have unity in the home. Common problem, common solution. Unity.
And it's if we don't, where it says our common welfare should come first, I believe that the programs were designed, like Al-Anon calls it a family disease, and it is a family disease. It was in our home. And so if we're going to be a family again, we have to be a family in recovery. And in the Al-Anon book it says, because the traditions are based on spiritual principles, they often apply to personal matters as well as group concerns. When I get tangled up in a problem with other people, the traditions can offer guidance and perspective. And so that's what it's been like in our home. We have a personal progress on our parts, meant that we take the steps individually with our sponsors. So when we get home and we've gone through the steps, we're unified. And when we first started the program, my home group came first, then my sponsor, then my God fell in place, which I believe my God gave me an alcoholic so I could find Al-Anon, so I could find my God. And Then my family came, because they said if you put your program first, everything else will fall in place.
You got to remember that the traditions were written by the same person who wrote the steps. The steps are for the individual, the traditions are for the group, and our household was a group. And so when you study the traditions, when I study the traditions, I reflect on the steps. If I'm going to look at tradition 1, which is unity, then I have to look at the first step, which says that I'm powerless over alcohol. I'm the alcoholic, I'm the problem. Our daughter still goes to meetings after 37 years, and I'm her alcoholic. I'm the person she goes to meetings for. Still, she's not married to an alcoholic. So I'm the carrier for her. And my sobriety is still number 1. And by the same token, my daughter says, Dad, if you ever drink again, you'll never see me and the kids again. So that's not a threat, it's a fact, and that's unity, all right? The second tradition for our group purpose, there is one ultimate authority, a loving God, and he may express himself in our group conscience. Our leaders are but trusted servants, and that just castrated me.
He left out the part they do not govern.
Yeah, it took me out of the God position.
We dethroned him.
Dethroned me, and let me tell you, I was more than glad to get off that horse. I didn't want the responsibility no more. So that was fine.
By going through the steps, we found the God, and we put our God first in our life. Keith wasn't the God anymore. He used to say when he was drinking and watching TV, get up. I need to change channels, because it was before we had remote controls. And so Simone or I, because we didn't want to have a fight, would get up and change the TV channel. So after we got in the program, he was watching TV one night, and he said, Simone, go change the channels. And she goes, are your legs broken? And he looked at her like he'd just seen a ghost. And he got up and he went out in the garage, and we heard all this noise, and he came back in, and he had sawed the end off of a broom and a mop and taped the handles together, and he sat in his chair and he poked the TV to change his own channels. So alcoholics are very resourceful.
You may release my ass, but I'm innovative. All right, tradition 3.
The third tradition for Al-Anon is the relatives of alcoholics, when gathered together for mutual aid, may call themselves an Al-Anon family group, provided that as a group they have no other affiliation. The only requirement for membership is that there be a problem of alcoholism in a relative or friend. And in our home, Simone and I both had a relative that had caused us many problems with alcoholism. And so her and I were an Al-Anon group in our home. And we started taking group conscience in our home. And, there was days at New Sobriety that, Keith would be having a bad day, and we'd say, okay, he's just an alcoholic. He's having a bad day. So we knew what was wrong, and we'd stay out of his space. Or if I was having a bad day, I said, I'm having a bad day. And they'd leave me alone and let me work through it with my sponsor, going to a meeting or whatever. We did not sponsor each other. I think that's what we did before we got here. And that didn't work. So we needed outside reasoning.
One of the things about the third tradition, alcoholics want to say, the only requirement is a desire to stop drinking. Well, let me tell you, I went in and out of my house for 6 years drinking, having a desire, not having a desire, having a desire, not having a desire, and I never did want to quit. So May the 11th, 1976, I wanted to quit. And one of the most important things that helped our family with that third tradition was that I exhibited the desire to stop drinking. I exhibited a desire to stop drinking in my household. So the people that lived, Sue and the kid and the dog and anybody else that was occasionally at my house, saw me get sober, get drunk, get sober, get drunk, get sober, get drunk. There was no trust. So that third tradition, when we got to that third tradition in our household, I would exhibit a desire to stay sober, around my household, so the people that lived with me started trusting the fact that I really wanted to get sober and stay sober. Very important. The desire, and I'm over 37 years sober, and I still have a desire to stay sober. I don't just want to stay sober, I have a desire, okay?
And I have never resented the method of his recovery. I have never said, why don't you stay home tonight? Because I know what staying home did in our house. And we were right in each other's face, and the finger was going, and all of that kind of stuff. So for him to be in a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous is the best thing that could have happened in our home. And also, the best thing that could have happened to me was to be in a meeting of Al-Anon, because I was crazier than a tick. And I didn't want him to drink more. Physical sobriety is the most important thing in our home, still today, with everybody, me, him, anybody in our home.
If you look at the third step and I made a decision to turn our will and our life over to a power greater than ourselves, I made that decision, turn my will and my life over to that power greater than me, and therefore I developed a desire to stop drinking. So it went hand in hand. The third tradition, the desire, comes from me in the third step. I get the strength and the commitment to stay sober. Tradition 4, the only requirement each group should be autonomous except in matters affecting other groups or AA as a whole.
And ours is the same, except it says that, or Al-Anon or AA as a whole. That means that I can't be going out and doing things that's going to have a reflection on him and making him look bad. Like I can't go write hot checks anymore when we have a joint checking account. I got put in jail for writing hot checks to the county to get him out of jail. And so I had to start cleaning up my act and be an example in our homes. There was days that Simone was the good example in our home. God has never let all three of us be in a bad place at the same time.
By the same token, that tradition, whenever she would go to work, if somebody had a drinking problem at her work, that tradition keeps her from saying, oh, my husband's a member of Alcoholics Anonymous, maybe you could talk to him. See, she can't go to her work or in her life there and break my anonymity. But I'm the only one that can break my anonymity, all right? And I have had periods of sobriety, but this fourth tradition has been very important. I had a period of sobriety at 9 years sober that I was very active in Alcoholics Anonymous with other people in Alcoholics Anonymous, icons of Alcoholics Anonymous speaking around, and my past came up and caught me, and I was indicted by a federal grand jury for being involved with organized crime from my past, and I had to step away from some people in Alcoholics Anonymous because they might have been subpoenaed to testify in my court case. So as a member of Alcoholics Anonymous, I had to step away from people, change sponsors and change groups to get away from people so that they wouldn't be subpoenaed into my problem. So in sobriety, I had to use that tradition very much to stay on my side of the street and not bring you into my problem. Always before my life, I would jeopardize your life to validate me. I always brought people into my crap, in other words. And that tradition said to me, take care of your own side of the street and don't incriminate anybody else. In sobriety, very important tradition.
And I had to stop sponsoring this one lady one time because her biggest complaint was that her husband always had too many tissues in her purse because he was snorting coke and his nose ran all the time. Well, I found out she was his dope dealer. And so I couldn't sponsor her in Al-Anon anymore because it went against my principles. And it would have reflected on him, too.
I didn't need any more trouble. I didn't need her sponsoring a coke dealer, for God's sake. I was in enough trouble with the DEA myself.
Okay, 5. And this is different from AA's. Each Al-Anon family group has but one purpose, to help families of alcoholics. We do this by practicing the 12 steps of AA ourselves, by encouraging and understanding our alcoholic relatives, and by welcoming and giving comfort to families of alcoholics. So this tradition gives Al-Anons permission to read the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, because that's where our steps came from. And it says our steps come from Alcoholics Anonymous. We can't use AA literature in our meetings because they're not conference approved, but it tells you where to go to study the steps. Okay?
The tradition 5, each group has but one primary purpose, / to carry the message to the alcoholic who still suffers, was the one that I bring alcoholics over at my house. You know, I used to bring all kinds of people to my house when I was drinking and getting loaded, and then I sobered up, and I'm bringing all these newcomers and all these crapheads over to my house, you know, laying around the house and smoking all these cigarettes and toting all the damn ashtrays full of butts and leaving their stinky shoes around and laying around the house. And my wife and my sponsor got together and said, you know, work this tradition in your own home. You don't bring a bunch of people to your house, just clutter up your house, and you know, the people in your house have put up with that crap forever. You have a primary purpose to help other alcoholics, but for God's sake, take them to the Al-Anon club, take them to a motel room, take them to a step house. Don't keep dragging them into your own home. Clean your own house up. Let your house get sober. And tradition 5 is the one, oh my God. Yeah, I'm supposed to be helping people, but I'm not supposed to drag my family on down farther by being a shithead in my own house, see? That's a tradition.
Well, we're supposed to teach them to have principles in their lives, too, if we're going to sponsor somebody, and teach them respect for other people's things. One guy he sponsored always put his car catty corner in our driveway, and they'd go to an AA meeting. And then Simone and I'd go out to get in our car to go to our meeting, and his car would be blocking our driveway, and I'd have to pull up in the grass and back out over the sidewalk to get my car out of the way. So one night we took a whole thing of Post-it notes and wrote all over the Post-it notes, no parking in driveways. We put 500 notes all over his car. And he thought that that was so funny. So the next time he did it, I called the police and I said, you know, I have an abandoned vehicle in my driveway. And so Keith and him came home that night, and Keith goes, do you know what happened to John's car? I said, well, the cops came. I think they impounded it. And he's going, Jesus, don't do that to my newcomers. They can't afford to bail their cars out. And he learned.
He never parked behind her car again.
So you got to teach these people who you are and not let them take advantage
Same thing,
of you.
they fill them ashtrays. Back when everybody smoked, they'd fill them ashtrays full of cigarette butts. So her and my daughter, they got a big manila envelope, and they took all the ashtrays for a week and put them in this envelope, and they mailed them to this guy. And he got this big envelope. He said, what am I supposed to do this? I said, I don't know. But if I was you, I wouldn't smoke in my house no more, because that's just a warning of what's next.
This one guy came, he was over at our house one day, and I walked in the house. I couldn't drive in my driveway. It blocked it. And I went in the house, and Keith had 3 or 4 guys in there for coffee. And I had been to the doctor. I had a sore throat, wasn't feeling good. And so I started complaining about it, and this guy's sponsor said, hey, you know, that's your car. Let's go move your car. And Alan said, let me have your keys, and I'll have him move your car, and then I'll pull your car in the driveway for me. And I said, okay. And so they came back in the house, and the sponsor was laughing like crazy. And Keith goes, what's so funny? And he said, well, you should have heard what he said about Sue a while ago. You know, she made him really mad. Keith said, what did she say? And this kid said, I said, I want to kill her ass. And I walked up to him, got right in his face, and I go, get in line.
All right, tradition 6. All right, an AA group will never endorse, finance, or lend the AA name to any related facility or outside enterprise. These problems of money, property, and prestige divert us from our primary purpose. That one right there was written so the Al-Anons couldn't bring Girl Scout cookies to the AA meetings and sell them.
And ours says, it's the same thing. It says, although a separate entity, we should always cooperate with Alcoholics Anonymous.
Right.
Okay? And we do. Like at conventions like this, you have an Al-Anon on your program. Thank you for doing that. And last New Year's Eve, it was on Christmas Eve. And in Vegas, where we have our Al-Anon meeting, some AAs wanted to use that facility for their New Year's Eve meeting, and we were having our meeting at the same time. And so we told them how they could have their meeting there, and we could close their meeting. We could have an Al-Anon meeting there, and we'd have dual meeting, but we'd close them in between and not break traditions. And this guy said, no, we want you to leave. You don't need a meeting as bad as we do. And you got to cooperate with Alcoholics Anonymous. And I said, you don't want to be around us when we don't have a meeting. And he said, well, our tradition doesn't say we have to cooperate with Al-Anon. And I said, that's right, but we're trying to be helpful. And you can take our help or not. You don't have to. And they didn't. And we had a dance, and Santa Claus came for the kids, and we had a great time. We had a potluck, and we had
One
fun.
of the things that's important about this sixth tradition is it correlates with the sixth step. And you've got to remember the sixth step. Alcoholics have a tendency to skip the sixth step and the seventh step. Do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then jump to 8. The sixth tradition is very important because it correlates with the sixth step. See? And that's one of the things that I had to learn is I have character defects, and they all have character. And they involve money, property, and prestige. And I'm trying to get things straightened at home. I'm new sober, and I'm trying to get things straightened at home. And the worst thing about the sixth tradition is the seventh tradition is next. And that correlates with the seventh step. And for me to be self-supporting through my own contributions was pretty rough. So I had to take a look at this. I had to stand alone. I owed over $250,000 in amends money, and I bought a house for $20,000, owed $140 on it when I got sober, and I owed all kinds of Aetna finance and everything, and her and the kid and everybody else on that side stood alone and let me pay my amends by myself, and I had to pay that money back. So I had to get my side of the street cleaned up in Tradition 6 so that I would be able to make my financial amends without using people like I did when I was drinking.
And by me being self-supporting, I went ahead and make the house payment and utilities because Simone and I lived there too, and we wanted to live comfortable. But I'm not going to push our finances in a problem in order for him to get out of trouble. I'm not going to enable him anymore. The
other thing that the sixth tradition taught me was my sponsor said, put $1 in the basket. If you go to a meeting, you don't put any money in the basket, you're a flake just like you were whenever you were on the street. So get your dollar up and have it so you go to the meeting, you got that dollar in your pocket. Don't go in there with a 20 and want the seventh tradition to be a bank. Have your change in your pocket so you can put it in the basket like you're supposed to. And the seventh tradition, every AA group ought to be fully self-supporting, declining outside contribution. That was very, very difficult for me, but I'm a hustler, I'm a jiver and a conniver, I'm a flim-flam man, and I had to start working right away. I didn't have time to join World Service. I didn't have time to join any group. I didn't have time to do nothing but set the chairs up for the meeting because I needed to be busting my butt to pay that financial amends back. See, I'm not against all that service work, but I needed to pay my amends back. I can't pay my amends back by running off every weekend to some service committee or something. I did service, but I had to pay my financial amends. I had to work overtime. I had to hustle and jive and make that money because I had to pay all that money back with interest.
And see, in the seventh tradition, when I'd go shopping, I would buy things for Keith and Simone so they would look good because I didn't want them going anywhere look bad because they were a reflection on me. But I had so much guilt over myself, I'd hide my stuff under the bed. And when he was drinking, and I'd say, I don't have anything to, he'd say, where did you get that? And I'd say, oh, I'd had it forever. And so he didn't know if I was buying clothes for me or not. But he got sober, and one night we were going to an AA thing, and I said, I don't have anything to wear. And he said, well, why don't you get one of those sacks from under the bed?
I knew she was buying them clothes and hiding them under the bed. I knew that.
So we had to get honest.
I was giving her presents. I gave her guilt presents when I was new sober. And one day her sponsor come, and I got her a little turquoise necklace. And her sponsor come and picked her up, and her sponsor said, oh, where'd you get that? And she told her sponsor, oh, the alcoholic got that for me. It's an I love you gift. Her sponsor said, well, why don't you check and see if he's got enough guilt that the next time he'll buy you something a little more expensive than a piece of turquoise. So that's like when she'd asked me for money, her sponsor said, how much did he give you? She said, $20. She said, well, he's got enough guilt. Next time, tell him you want 100.
She said, your self-worth's kind of low.
Yeah.
So the next time I asked for money, I said, I need $100. And he goes, you're kidding, $100? And I said, yeah, my self-worth came up.
Yeah. It's come up considerable in the last 37 years, too.
And I'm still self-supporting.
Her level of security in her checking account is really spiritual. But so's mine. I had to pay that money back, and I was busted my rear to pay that money back. And then I worked and hustled and jived, and you know, by the time I was 9 years sober, I had to make amends for the way I was making amends.
You know what? We never had trust in finances at our house, ever. And after he went through all of that, he couldn't go make money like he used to. He had to live on his salary. And so after he got busted by the feds, you know, I went up. I was going to go to a service function one morning, and I went up to his office, and he said, babe, I've got to live on my fixed income now. I can't afford, I have some bills I can't afford to pay myself. And he gave me 3 or 4 bills. He said, could you pay these? And I said, sure. I said, okay, no problem. And he said, well, what'd you come up here for? I said, I came up here to tell you that I love you and kiss you goodbye because I'm leaving now. And he goes, well, and I said, I don't feel that way anymore.
After I gave her those bills, she didn't feel like she loved me anymore.
I'm just going to say goodbye, no kisses.
The 8th tradition is Alcoholics Anonymous should remain forever non-professional, but our service centers may employ special workers. One of the things that we had to find as a household, AA, Al-Anon, and Alateen, and I don't know about anybody else, it's our story and we're sharing it with you. But we had to get involved. We had a home group, we had sponsors, and we had a God in our life. And right away, early in our program life, we were one of the few families in all of Southern California that had Mama Bear, Papa Bear, and Baby Bear all in the same household that were in all 3 programs. And so we were asked to do a lot of things. The Al-Anons asked us to participate in a lot of potlucks and things like that.
Yeah, to share our stories. We speak family speakers.
The family recovery unit asked us to share. So we would go and talk, and I would get up and talk 10 minutes about, and I had to learn how long I'm supposed to talk, but I would talk 10 minutes, a drunkalogue, and then our daughter would talk about what happened, and boom, and then Sue would talk about recovery. And in doing so, we started being asked to be involved. We spoke at our first convention. We were 6 months sober. I was 6 months sober, but I only talked 10 minutes. Our daughter talked 15 minutes, and Sue talked about 20 minutes about recovery, but it was a family of recovery. And consequently, we were asked to be involved in a lot of things. Consequently, we got involved in hospital and institutions where many places there's no family recovery brought into any kind of hospital or institution. They're in there because of this alcoholic or the addict, but there's no family recovery. Al-Anon is not emphasized there. And that's one of the things over the years this 8th tradition has done for us. We have gone into prisons for over 30 years consistently, never had a dark night. We buy our own gas, we put the air in our own tire, we have insurance on our car, we get people from our home groups, we take those people into these panels. We're cleared in 6 different states to go into institutions. And I had part of my amends. I had to clean up my past. Our daughter moved to Italy, and in order to go to Italy to see our daughter, I had to get a passport. I had to clean up my past. I had got clearance to clean up my past by going into prisons.
Yeah, and I got an Al-Anon panel at CIW, California Institute for Women in Chino, California. And because there's women in there that accomplished what I wanted to do and didn't. And so I've been going in there for 30 years. And then Keith got his panel in there. And so last year, when they have their banquet for volunteers going into that facility, they called Keith and I up, and they presented us with a certificate of being consistent in that facility for 30 years. You know, about 20 years of going in there on the panel. They took a chair up front, and some of the inmates, they had entertainment, and they were singing songs, and they brought a chair up front, and they asked Keith to go up and sit in that chair. And the inmates pronounced him Man of the Year in a woman's prison.
I got the serial killer women in there voted me as Man of the Year.
And they sang Mr. Big Stuff too.
But one of the things that we got involved in conventions such as this thing here. I was chairman of the Southern California Convention, the largest annual convention in Alcoholics Anonymous. And Sue was the Al-Anon chairman at that convention. Our daughter was the Alateen chairman. We did things as a family, see, as a family. And we got involved in all this service work as a family. Our daughter says, she laughed, she said, Mom, you're the only family that for Christmas, when your daughter comes to spend Christmas with you, you want her to go to prison with you. You know? All right, 9th tradition.
Okay, 9. Our groups as such ought never be organized, but we may create service boards or committees directly responsible to those they serve. So in our home, just like it is in meetings, there's people responsible to set up chairs, make coffee, and that kind of thing. And so because we're all going to meetings, chores around the house were getting forgotten. And so Keith was sitting one night at home, and he said, he was reading the newspaper, and he said, do you know that there's an article in here that says that 85% of the women that work clean their own houses? Because I'd gotten a housekeeper. My sponsor said, you know, as long as you're making a salary, you go on all these, you don't have time, you know, get a housekeeper, because we'd all tried to do it, and we'd fight and stuff. And so I got a housekeeper. And so he's reading this article saying 85% of all women clean their own houses. And I said, that's great. Does it say how many meetings a week they go to?
Yeah, right.
So we all accepted the fact that we chipped in, and our house was organized and it was clean because we asked for help.
Tradition 9 is also in conjunction with step 9. And so I had to do some things around the house, pick up after myself. I had to pay attention to mow the yard, clean the house up, and I did as I got sober and as I paid my financial amends back. One of the important things that I can mention about the financial amends that I had to pay, I owed over $250,000. The fact that I was paying that financial amends back, I brought my level of income up as I stayed sober. My level of income came up higher. So by the time I got my financial amends paid, I was earning a lot of money. See, by the fact that if I had not had to pay that financial amends back, I could have sat on my butt and been happy with a $7 an hour job. But because I had to pay that financial amends back, I had to work myself up to a position where I was making a lot of money, so when the financial amends was made, I could provide for my house. It took me 14 years of sobriety before I made that financial amends completely. 14 years. But by the time I was 7, 8, 9 years sober, I had got a new house for our family. I got a decent car for the family. We had a decent, lifestyle. See?
And see, all this is because we're making spiritual progress in our own lives. Each one of us. We want to get better. So how do we get better? We do the opposite of what we used to do. Like let the laundry go and all that kind of stuff. Now we do it. One of the neatest things about Keith going into detox is that they taught him how to do laundry. So we each did our own laundry, and that gave us more freedom to go to our own meetings. We all chipped in. It wasn't like, okay, you're the housekeeper, you got to do all of this. We became equals. We were special workers because we had a God in our life, a new employer. And so in order to be subservient to our God, we have to have our own personal lives in order.
One of the things that I as an alcoholic, I noticed, where 3 or more are gathered, where 2 or more are gathered, whatever. That little girl was 12 and a half years old when I got sober. And the only thing that she didn't have, she had given everything away except her God. The child had a relationship with her God. And so when I got sober, we had an opportunity to go and speak together, and I listened to our daughter. I was just a few months sober, and I listened to Simone, and she's talking about her God, and I'm thinking, my goodness, that kid has a fantastic relationship with her God. I'm trying to develop that, and my own child has it. So what comes of that, there was never a time, there is still never a time when all 3 of us, Daddy, Mommy, and the kid, are out of God consciousness.
It's the same
There's
time.
always one of us as a family. We're a family. Even after 37 years, there's never a time when all of us are out of God consciousness. There's always one of us that is in God consciousness. Tradition 10.
The Al-Anon family groups have no opinion on outside issues, since our name ought never be drawn into public controversy. And this, I believe, is like when we was going through all that stuff with the feds and that kind of stuff, everybody was talking about us. And at least our name was mentioned in AA and Al-Anon as much as some of the big deals. There were circuit speakers getting divorces, all kinds of stuff. I said, well, at least we're in the top 10, But what we've learned about this is that when I share something with somebody else about you, I'm hurting you. I am absolutely not in God consciousness. I am hurting you by putting you down to make me feel better than. That's all that's about, is putting somebody down. And once you talk to, beware of the people that say, I want to tell you something, but don't tell anybody else. Because it's going to be public the next meeting you go to.
You're going to go right across the room and tell somebody else.
And they did. So on the 11th tradition.
Let me say something. Tradition 10 is really, really important. I'm the alcoholic, and I stuck my foot out into everything and my tongue out into everything and blah, 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 blah. And that tradition saved my butt and still does. The 10th tradition is the tradition that stops all gossip, stops all BS. I don't want to hear it. Tell my hand. See? Because that tradition says, this is an outside issue, and I don't want to know about it. And you can use that. You just stop all the crap right there and stay in your own circle and stay on your own side of the street.
That's like one time I was telling Keith's sponsor, was going to a meeting with his sponsor, and I told him, there's this lady that goes to 1 meeting a week, and she is so nice. And I'm going to 4 and 5 Al-Anon meetings a week just so I can act like her. And she only goes to 1 meeting a week. What in the heck's wrong? He said, what you need to know is that some are sicker than others, and you're some of the some.
Yeah, right. All right, tradition 11, our public relations policy is based on attraction rather than promotion. We need always maintain personal anonymity at the level of press, radio, and film. When we were first in the program, and because we were one of the few families, AA, Al-Anon, and Alateen working together, people came at us and wanted us to be on video and do stuff for treatment centers or for prisons. Want to do this for a prison, make a film, and we want you guys to be the family. And I went to my sponsor and I said, they want me to be on a video. He said, Keith, you could probably do the video, but it's the makeup that's going to get you drunk. And I had to recognize that it's the performing part of it.
And I was asked to be, the governor had a Woman's Day conference in Anaheim one time, and one of the big gurus in LA had recommended that I be on the panel, one of the panels, to represent Al-Anon. Now, I had to do that without breaking my anonymity, okay? So I get there and I'm on this panel, and there's me, and they have me first, and so I talked about how I love an alcoholic, blah, blah, blah. Then there was a lady that was president of MAD, and you know how she talked about alcoholics. And then there was a lady that was representing when they were starting the 3 strikes you're out thing. And so it made me look like a
She's the only one that loved an alcoholic. The
Everybody else
rest of them
was
wanted to
putting
kill
them
him.
down. So we had to do a workshop in the morning. We had to do one in the afternoon. So in the afternoon, I said, you know what? I won't do this unless I go last. And they go, no, you're not on the program. You're first on the program. And I said, great, then I'm not going to do it. And they said, oh, you can't do that. And I said, watch. Look at my back as I walk away. And they said, okay, if you insist. And so they did all of that, their stuff that they did. And then I was able to say, alcoholism is a family illness. And I was able to make up for what had happened in the morning on that panel and to represent Al-Anon as it should be represented, especially when you have controversy in public. Okay.
Tradition 11, our public relations policy is based on attraction rather than promotion. All right. The important part about that has been in the job area. I have never gone in there with an AA sign on, and I worked over 20 years with a major oil company, and I worked over 20 years with Boeing Aircraft. I retired Boeing Aircraft, and they had employee assistance programs. They had union people, all that, and I never engaged with those people. I never broke my anonymity in the workplace because there was so many people, managers and all kinds of people are being detoxed, and then I'd go to work, and there they'd be, my boss, and here they are drunk again, you know, things like that. And so I had to maintain my anonymity in the workplace and let the employee assistance people and those people handle their own business.
And in my profession, I was a human resource manager for this transportation company. I got our company to approve random drug screening for our drivers. And my boss thought I was so smart. I'd say, that guy's loaded. We need to do a random drug screen on him. And he'd go, how do you know that? And I said, well, you sent me to school. You know, and I would recommend people that came in and asked for help to have their families go to Al-Anon, and I'd name the different 12-step programs. And I did that for 15 years and never broke my own anonymity. I did it because God says carry the message. He doesn't say how.
All right. Anonymity is the spiritual foundation of all of our traditions, ever reminding us to place principles before personalities. That ties in with the 12th step. Having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we try to carry the message to alcoholics, practice the principles in all of our affairs. And the one thing that is very spiritual, we work the steps. Sue and I, and one of the most spiritual parts of that has been our attraction. Sue and I have been married over 51 years. We have an extremely good sex life, and we still have active sex with each other. And
that's nice, isn't it?
And that's an attraction. People don't know about that. People don't talk about that. It's something that people want to turn their back on, and it's a very important thing. It's one of the most important things for the longevity in our relationship. and as well as supporting other people. It's very important that we have that relationship with each other, because our daughter, who's been with her man for over 28 years, and they have 2 children, and she can still look at her mom and dad as being examples in her life, in her marriage life. She can call the same number and get mom and dad. The kids can call the same number and get granny and grandpa.
And in ladies that I sponsor, a lot of Al-Anons turn it off. You know, a lot of AAs fake it. And I've given ladies assignments, you know, to be the aggressor in their relationship and to be honest about what's going on and talk to their spouses about it. That's part of recovery, in my opinion. And we're not dishonest anymore, and we participate. And I've had guys that I don't even know send me roses and say thank you. Yeah, because they start having an active sex life in the home.
It's important that we be an example. It was important that they're absolutes from the minute I was sober and going to stay sober, that I haven't hit anybody since May 11th, 1976. It's not my job to hit them. I haven't cheated on my wife since May 11th, 1976. She says, well, you're not supposed to.
Nor have I him.
But if I'm going to trust God, the problem I had was, how can the curse of a thief is he doesn't trust himself. It dawned on me after I was sober a little bit, I hadn't cheated on her. I said, I haven't cheated on you. She said, you're not supposed to. I know, but God can trust me. God can trust me. I'm trustworthy, see? I'm trustworthy. And so those are the things that our daughter could look up to, that we weren't fighting over issues like that. We weren't fighting over money. Our daughter looked up to us, therefore we could be a program of attraction, as well as the fact that we sponsor a lot of couples, and those couples can come to us if they choose to. We're not marriage counselors, we're not bankers, we're not pimps. We just live a life that's out there in front. We don't have any secrets. I'm as sober as I am secret, and if I have no secrets, there is no gossip. I don't care what you say.
There's 3 words that will stop any fight in any house with recovery in it. Call your sponsor. It stops everything immediately. It puts the principles back where they're supposed to be. And we can't live without these principles in our life today. If you look at the traditions and everywhere it says group, it applies to a family, because my sponsor said, you know, you take the word assume, you break it up. If you assume something, it makes an ass out of you and me. She said, take the word group, split it up, and it's called grow up. And everybody in your house needs to grow up. And that's still the truth today.
The most important thing about our hospital and institution work, in all the years we've been going into hospitals and institutions, the people in those institutions know us.
Everything.
They know all our secrets. Institutional work has been the most saving grace. I hated women when I sobered up, and I prayed for God to take that hate away, and he gave me a panel in a woman's prison. And the first meeting I went to in there was about 12 women in there that were in there for killing a guy like me.
It's like a couple of months ago, we went in there and Keith was smarting off the inmates, and he was saying this and that, and then she said that, but that doesn't really count because she said it. And 140 women got up and went, oh yeah? I go, yay. So what we do in our lives today is that we keep current with our steps by sponsoring others. That's the main purpose of this program, to get through these steps, sponsoring others, but it doesn't stop there. We share these traditions with the people we sponsor. We work them in our home, and they keep us together, and they stop controversy in our own home. That's when you're having a meaningful conversation. So we want to thank you all very much for allowing us to share with you today.